Welcome back to another episode of Real Estate Stories by popular demand. We have Mac Dadian from NFM Lending. Welcome back to the show.
Happy to be here, Robert.
All right, real quick, guys, pay close attention. Here's the problem. You're shopping for your first house, or even just want to shop for your first house, and you realize that just to kind of get in the game, you probably have to have $20,000 to $25,000 available for most people between your down payment and your closing costs. When you lump those together, you're probably talking 20 to 25,000 in most cases. But we have a solution. Mac, what's the solution?
The solution, Robert, is for our lovely first-time home buyers out there, we have a program that comes directly from the state of New Jersey, and that is a grant loan. Okay. We have a program that's going to offer you, depending on where you're moving to in New Jersey, either $10,000 or $15,000, with a bonus caveat on top that we're going to talk about as well too.
Right. So let's slow down. So this is a first-time buyer program. Mm-hmm. It's a grant from the state of New Jersey. So is this free money? Like,
yes, in certain regards, yes. So To explain that better and answer that better, the NJHMFA, New Jersey Housing Mortgage Finance Association, will offer a $10,000 to $15,000 grant that is going to get attached to your property. Okay, so you're buying a house with a VA loan, FHA loan, conventional loan, USDA loan. You would also qualify for this program. Okay, they will offer you $10,000 or $15,000 to put towards both down payment and closing costs.
Okay, so let's just recap that for a second. So if I'm a first-time home buyer, and we're going to talk about what that actually means in a second, depending on where I'm shopping, I can get $10,000 or $15,000 towards that $25,000 we talked about, right? So It just kind of gets applied to not just my down payment, not just my closing costs, probably some of both. It basically, the amount of money that I have to lay out at the time that I buy a house, that $10,000 or $15,000, it's going to be there. And it's going to offset the amount of money I have to take out of the bank to do that, right? What is a first-time home buyer? Like, so does that mean they never bought a house? That they bought it's okay if they bought a house years ago? Like, what's like a first-time buyer for this, by this program's definitions?
Sure. So the NJHMFA considers a first-time home buyer as an individual who has not owned a property for the past 3 years. So as long as you didn't personally own, you weren't on the deed and title of a property for the past 3 years, you are considered a first-time home buyer and you can qualify for this grant.
So I'm going to give you an extreme example. So if I owned a home for 20 years and I sold it 5 years ago and I've been renting for the last 5 years, I could potentially qualify for this grant?
100%, you would be considered a first-time home buyer.
Wow. And now here comes the secret sauce, guys. Here's the extra level of magic in this program. What about my parents and whether or not they own a home? And what does that mean in this program? If you are a first generation home buyer based on the definitions of this program.
Yeah. So the secret sauce here is that if you are a first time home buyer and also a first generation home buyer, defined simply as your parents have not owned a home for the past 3 years, makes you a first generational home buyer. The NJHMFA, on top of the 10 and 15,000 or 15,000, they are going to give you an additional $7,000 on top.
So let's go back to my example. Someone is buying a house, and we talked about the 20 to 25,000, and where we came up with that, guys, is we just in general loose terms, $300,000 house using a mortgage program with 3.5% down payment. When you factor closing costs, you're looking at $20,000 to $25,000 needed out of pocket. Using your example, if I haven't owned a house in the last 3 years and my parents haven't owned a house in the last 3 years, I could potentially qualify for up to $17,000 to purchase a home.
Correct.
That's insane, man.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane. That's insane. You know,
so the program, what they do is it's, you know, New Jersey, in the eyes of this program, New Jersey is almost split in two. You know, they consider North Jersey a little higher cost versus South Jersey. So where that border is right there that you just pulled up. So, you know, that Bergen, Essex, Hudson County, the northern counties, you would get 15,000 plus the 7 equaling 22,000. And then the southern counties, you know, where we live, Burlington, Camden, Cape May, that would be 10,000 plus the 7, be it $17,000.
Right. Wow. That's amazing. All right. I know when we worked on this program has been around for a bit, although it just doesn't get enough attention, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. A few years ago, when we were working through this program, it would take like, I don't know, 2 months, 2.5 months, sometimes longer to actually close the loan from the time it went under contract. And at that time, sellers were reluctant to accept offers with the grant program. I actually had one that I can think of a few years ago, and it was no fault of the lender. It was just the nature of the program that just took too long, and there was so many uncertainties. But in my experience lately, you tell me if I'm wrong, they seem to have cleaned up their act. They seem to be a lot more efficient at getting these things done at the state.
Correct. So the state itself, you know, they've been running this program, I think, at least since, I want to say 2016, and it was a different dollar amount back then, but, you know, the essence is the same, and they've been rebuilding the state office, you know, over the past 9 years. So they've pretty much buttoned up their process on their end, where really it shouldn't take longer than 30 days. Okay. And that's where it really depends on, you know, they say who you work with matters. And that's why you want to work with a lender that knows this program. This program should not be viewed as difficult, as time consuming. You know, if the lender does their due diligence up front and knows what the state wants and collects all those documents up front, this can be closed in the same 30-day time period that any other mortgage program can be closed in.
Awesome. All right. So the problem is not everyone has enough money to buy a house. So this is a solution, right? Potentially you could qualify for a grant program. And let me put this back up on the screen for everybody to see, because this is pretty amazing to me. This is right off of the New Jersey State website. So if I'm reading this right, if I'm a single person or I have a spouse or a partner, and let's just pick Camden County, I can earn up to $123,500. If I'm reading, am I reading that right?
That is correct. Yep. That is the income limit.
Right. So that's actually, so you can make pretty good money and still qualify for this program. And if I'm reading this part correct, which has to do with the purchase price, let's just stay with Camden County for our example. And I want to go buy a house. Is this right? I can buy a house up to about $539,000.
Correct.
Use this program. Wow.
That number essentially is the loan amount, and you cannot exceed that loan amount. So you can actually buy a house that's a little more than 539 because you have a down payment. But, you know, for simplification purposes, you know, you can buy a house upwards of $539,000 in Camden County with this program.
Right. So I could actually make pretty good. If I make decent money, but I don't have a ton of money saved, maybe earlier on in my career, but I've never bought a house, or at least haven't owned a house in the last 3 years, I could potentially get a $10,000 grant, possibly $7,000 more if I'm a first-time home buyer. Did I get that right? First-time home buyer. And I could actually buy a $500,000 house and use this toward, we're not saying that you have to, but that's like the limit is a little over $500,000. So it's a pretty flexible program, actually. I didn't know that.
Yeah. What I like too, a little added point, in some cases, that 17 or 22,000 covers everything. where I've actually had customers that we go to the closing table and they get a check back at closing because there was actually a surplus of funds. Maybe down payment closing costs only came to $14,000 and the $3,000 was left over. So,
right. And that could totally happen, right? Because in our kind of mental example, we were talking about a 3.5% down payment, which is for FHA financing, right? That's the standard down payment for that. But there are conventional programs that go as low as 3%, correct?
Correct.
And then if you're a veteran and you served or are serving and you qualify for a VA loans are 0 down. So then you really only have to worry about closing costs because you don't have a down payment for our veterans. So yeah, this program could potentially cover a significant portion, if not all or more, of your down payment and closing costs associated with buying a house. And I don't know, I've been doing this a long time, man. I think that if this is something you're interested in, make sure you hook up with the right team. Make sure you're working with a real estate agent that understands the program and knows how to pitch it and educate the seller's agent and vicariously the sellers to try to get your offer accepted. And of course, make sure you're working with a very experienced lender, not just experienced lender, but a lender who's experienced at this specific program too, because not every lender is experienced at this kind of stuff.
Amen.
Yeah. Did you say amen or yeah, man?
Yeah, man. It did sound like amen.
It could be an amen. All right, cool. Well, contact information is going to be below in the notes, depending on where you're seeing this, guys. We wanted to jump on here real quick and share this with you. We would love to help you as a power team, of course, anywhere in the actually the entire New Jersey, truthfully. We can cover anywhere in New Jersey and get you qualified for this program and do some shopping.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Mac.
Thank you.